You know, the heartbreak of, like, looking up from a brilliant book, expecting to see the foggy streets of Victorian London, or, I don't know, a glittering jazz-age ballroom.
Oh, yeah. The absolute worst.
Right. And instead, you're just confronted by your own living room and, like, a giant pile of unfolded laundry.
The magic bubble just instantly pops.
Exactly. You are jarringly pulled back to reality. But what if the bubble didn't have to pop?
That's the dream, isn't it?
It is, and actually right now, an astonishing 62% of young travelers, and we're talking specifically 18 to 35-year-olds here, according to this massive 2025 research from EF Ultimate Break, they are completely abandoning traditional sightseeing.
Wow. Completely.
Yeah, literally packing their suitcases to step directly into the physical atmospheres of their favorite stories.
Which is just a radical reimagining of what a vacation is even supposed to achieve.
Mm.
I mean, we are basically watching the boundary between the fictional world and the physical world dissolve in real time.
And for you listening, this is rapidly becoming the definitive way people are choosing to spend their time off. So today, our deep dive is exploring this surging trend for 2026, which people are calling the read-away.
I love that term.
It's great, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have a stack of fascinating data and itineraries outlining the top trending literary destinations for 2026. And our mission here is to figure out the underlying mechanics of this explosion. Like, how does physically standing in the setting of a story fundamentally alter our neurological and emotional relationship with the text?
Right, getting into the actual science of the vibe.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. Why are we suddenly seeing a mass migration of readers trading their comfortable couches for boarding passes?
Well, to understand the explosion of the read-away, we really have to look at how modern audiences interact with media. For centuries, reading was categorized strictly as passive consumption.
Mm-hmm.
The author speaks, you sit quietly, and you absorb. But modern consumers, especially the younger demographics who have grown up in these highly interactive digital environments, they possess this deep psychological desire to turn passive consumption into active participation.
So they want to be part of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They don't want to just read a paperback on a generic beach anymore. They want the sensory input of their physical environment to validate and, amplify the emotions they are experiencing in the text. It's really about closing the loop between the imagination and the physical senses.
Closing the loop. I like that. So instead of fighting your environment to stay in the book, the environment kind of does the heavy lifting for you.
Yeah, precisely.
Let's start our journey by looking at where literature's roots run the absolute deepest, like the historical haunts, places where the geography itself seems to act as an incubator for enduring classics. And I feel like you can't really examine literary geography without planting a flag in Scotland.
Oh, absolutely not. Scotland's foundational role here cannot be overstated. I mean, Edinburgh is actually the world's first UNESCO City of Literature.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it hosts the massive Edinburgh International Book Festival. But the real mechanism at play here is how Scotland's incredibly diverse and often severe physical landscape dictates the psychology of the narratives born there. The environment is basically the architect of the story.
Yeah, and look at the sheer variety of what that landscape has inspired. You have Shakespeare's Macbeth, the sprawling romance of Outlander, the whimsy of Harry Potter, and like the dark duality of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Right, those are wildly different genres.
Totally wildly different, yet they all share this heavy atmospheric weight. And to tap into this, travelers are flocking to places like Loch Tay, Highland Lodges, and Aberfeldy.
Oh, gorgeous area.
Yeah, they're prioritizing these nature-forward sunset strolls before settling in with a classic text.
Because when you place yourself in that specific geography, the rolling shadowed hills, the deep lochs, the sudden violent shifts in weather, you are experiencing the exact sensory inputs that shaped those authors' minds.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the damp cold and the isolating mist of the Scottish Highlands naturally breed tales of hidden duality, like Jekyll and Hyde, or rugged survival, like Outlander. You aren't just looking at a pretty view in Aberfeldy, you are aligning your physical senses with the environmental stressors that make the mysticism of those texts feel entirely plausible.
Speaking of environmental stressors, that brings us to a much harsher climate, the English moors. Specifically, the West Yorkshire moors.
Oh, yeah. Rough country out there.
Very rough. And with Emerald Fennell's new movie adaptation of Wuthering Heights hitting screens, there is this massive resurgence of travelers booking these drafty, remote cottages out there. People are treating Haworth, the village where the Bronte sisters lived and wrote, almost like a pilgrimage site, complete with visits to the Bronte Parsonage Museum.
Right, because standing in the very rooms where those masterpieces were drafted offers a really profound tether to literary history.
I mean, I get that. I understand the historical appeal. It's kind of like visiting a famous rock band's original garage studio to see where the magic happened. But I have to push back a little on the motivations of the average traveler here.
Okay, go ahead.
Are people really venturing out into the freezing, punishing winds of the moors because they possess a deep, scholarly desire to understand the Bronte sisters' socio-economic reality? Or are they just chasing a brooding, romantic aesthetic? Like, is this just about capturing a moody vibe for social media?
Well, what's fascinating here is that, in the case of the Moors, chasing the aesthetic and achieving deep literary comprehension are actually the exact same thing.
Wait, really? How so?
Because you cannot separate Wuthering Heights from the soil it was written on. The rugged, remote geography isn't just a backdrop. It operates as an active character in the narrative.
An active character.
Yes, the harshness of the biting wind and the vast isolation of those estates directly dictate the wild, untamed pathology of Heathcliff and Cathy's relationship. So when a traveler goes out there and physically endures that freezing wind, their body is experiencing the same harsh reality as the characters did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you are understanding the text on a cellular level, even if your initial motivation was just a moody photograph. The physical discomfort translates directly into emotional empathy.
That is so interesting. So the aesthetic is the text. The biting wind literally forces you to understand the character's harshness.
Exactly.
Let's contrast that rugged isolation with something highly refined, where the environment is purely about sensory indulgence. The left bank of Paris.
A classic.
Right. This area is completely saturated with the ghosts of Gertrude Stein, Simone de Beauvoir, and the whole lost generation. And we see travelers meticulously recreating a specific sensory time travel here. Take the itinerary mapped out by Kieran Millwood Hargrave, the author of Almost Life.
Oh, I've read about this.
Yeah, she outlines a hyper-specific, curated, perfect literary day.
Her approach perfectly illustrates how routine and ritual connect us to the past.
It really does. She specifically mandates crossing the Pont Louis-Philippe, stopping at a place called Pagé de Wit to eat a single takeaway oyster, and then crossing back to the left bank to physically stand in the queue at the iconic Shakespeare and Company bookstore before finally reading in the Picasso Museum gardens. It's highly orchestrated.
It is, but look at the underlying mechanics of that orchestration. Eating an oyster isn't just a snack. It's a very specific, sharp sensory anchor to the 1920s Parisian literary scene.
Right, a taste of the era.
And waiting in the queue at Shakespeare and Company isn't just a tourist errand. It's a physical act of anticipation that mirrors the communal waiting and gathering of the expatriate writers who built that community.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, these physical acts, tasting the brine, hearing the street noise, feeling the cobblestones, they bypass the intellectual brain and directly trigger a sensory nostalgia. You are effectively tasting the same inspiration they did.
So we have travelers chasing the ghosts of classic authors by recreating their sensory inputs. But modern fandoms are hijacking this entire concept and taking literary travel in a completely different, adrenaline-fueled direction.
Oh, for sure.
We're seeing a massive pivot from historical observation to active, immersive world building.
This is a crucial evolution. The read-away trend is fracturing. While one half wants to observe the past, a massive new contingent wants to step completely inside modern fictional universes. They are using real-world geography as a proxy for fantasy realms.
And nothing dominates the space quite like the massive fantasy fandoms. EF Ultimate Break has actually engineered a 9-day tour called Highlights of Switzerland, inspired by Agotar.
Yes, this is a huge deal right now.
It is. For you listening who might not be deep into book talk, Agotar stands for A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. It is an absolute juggernaut of a fantasy series. Fans are flying across the globe to places like Zermatt in the Swiss Alps, not for the skiing, but because the dramatic alpine peaks and valleys physically mirror the fictional courts built in Maas's universe.
And the sociology of this is unprecedented. Historically, reading a fantasy novel is a deeply solitary internal act. You build the world inside your own head, and maybe, you debate the lore later in a digital forum or a convention hall.
Right, on Reddit or something.
Exactly. What this Swiss Alps tour represents is the geographical manifestation of a fandom. These groups are taking the psychological safety and shared language of their digital communities and physically mapping it onto the Swiss landscape. They're using the Matterhorn as a real-world stage set to actively roleplay and discuss fantasy lore.
I mean, it's essentially cosplaying of the passport.
Basically, yes.
You're taking the energy of Comic-Con, removing the fluorescent lights, and dropping it into a breathtaking mountain range.
Yep.
But it's not just the fantasy readers engaging in this kind of immersive roleplay. Fans of American classics are utilizing domestic geography to inhabit very specific, heavily stylized vibes. Let's look at the glitz and the ghosts.
The American literary landscape offers highly tangible architectural entry points into these narratives.
Definitely. Take Louisville, Kentucky. Beyond the Mervyn Trails, you have the Sealback. It is an incredibly opulent, historic hotel where F. Scott Fitzgerald actually spent time.
A stunning property.
It really is. The lore states that the hotel's underground Rathskeller room and its grand ballroom provided the direct inspiration for The Great Gatsby. Furthermore, Louisville is the fictional hometown of Daisy Buchanan, so travelers are booking rooms there to literally step inside the Gatsby glitz.
And by walking into that specific grand ballroom, the traveler is inhabiting the very architecture that birthed the American dream narrative. The scale of the room, the acoustics, the lighting. It physically enforces the feeling of extravagant wealth and underlying emptiness that defines Fitzgerald's work.
That contrast of wealth and emptiness, yeah. And if Louisville is the glitz, Colorado is the ghost. You have the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, which famously provided the isolating nightmare that sparked Stephen King's The Shining.
Classic literary horror tourism.
Exactly. But a more nuanced example is Hotel Boulderado in Boulder. It served as a haven for writers like Robert Frost and John Steinbeck. Today, the Boulderado offers a Boulder bookworm package. You get a Mountain View room, a gift card to the local bookstore, a Hemingway-inspired cocktail, a journal, and a literal quill pen.
I love the quill pen touch.
It's fun, but now, here's where my skepticism kicks in. I have to ask you, is drinking a themed cocktail and writing with a literal quill pen actually tapping into the literary spirit of Frost and Steinbeck? Or is this just highly effective hospitality marketing, capitalizing on a traveler's desire to feel intellectual on vacation?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it is undeniably clever marketing. But the commercial nature of the package doesn't negate the psychological utility of the objects.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Whether you are walking into the authentic glitz of a Gatsby ballroom or being handed a mass-produced quill pen in Colorado, what you are fundamentally participating in is a ritual.
A ritual? But how does a cocktail and a pen constitute a ritual?
Consider the cognitive load of the average traveler. Transitioning your brain from manager mode, paying bills, answering emails, navigating airports, into creator mode where deep imagination occurs is incredibly difficult.
Oh, tell me about it. It takes days to unwind.
Right. The brain resists it. So these props act as a psychological bridge. The quill pen is not just a souvenir. It is a physical, tactile signal to your nervous system that says, we have officially left the mundane world. We are now permitted to enter a creative space.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
By engaging in the ritual of holding the pen or drinking the specific cocktail, you are giving your brain the permission slip it needs to drop its daily defenses and deeply absorb a narrative.
So the props are essentially cognitive keys to unlock a different headspace.
Exactly.
But if a quill pen and a cocktail act as a key, what happens when the entire destination is engineered to be the lock? We are seeing the final and perhaps most intense evolution of this trend. Destinations that are entirely eschewing historical significance or fandom roleplay, and instead prioritizing the curation of the ultimate distraction-free environment for the brain.
Yeah, this is the most modern reactionary response within the read-away trend. It is the architectural curation of focus.
Right. It's no longer about where the author lived. It's about engineering the perfect space for you to read. Look at what's happening in Amsterdam.
A notoriously busy city.
Very busy. Normally, Amsterdam conjures images of chaotic streets, crowded canals, and millions of bicycles. But tucked away is the Dylan Amsterdam. It's a boutique hotel built on the exact site of the city's first 17th century theater. They pitch themselves as an absolute oasis of calm, specifically recommending that guests read heavy, emotionally resonant books like The Fault in Our Stars, The Goldfinch, or The Diary of Anne Frank within their walls, totally insulated from the chaos outside.
They are offering the ultimate modern luxury-engineered silence. By creating a fortress of quiet in the center of a dense urban environment, they allow the reader to engage with emotionally devastating texts like Anne Frank or The Fault in Our Stars, while still being physically grounded on the very cobblestones where those histories and narratives unfolded. You get the geographical resonance without the sensory overload.
But escaping urban noise is only half the battle. What happens when you want the environment to actively prepare your body to receive a story?
Now, this is where it gets really intense.
Yeah. Look at Barnard, Vermont. There is an all-inclusive 5-star resort called Twin Farms, which was formerly owned by Nobel Prize-winning author Sinclair Lewis and journalist Dorothy Thompson. They host dedicated authors' weekends.
Sounds very relaxing.
You would think so. But you aren't just sitting by a fire. They mandate physical engagement, like axe throwing, intensive biking, picnics, and soaking in a traditional Japanese onsen.
And that physical engagement is a brilliant neurological hack. When you engage in intense physical activity, like throwing an axe or biking up a hill, you are forcing your brain's default mode network to quiet down. You are burning off the cortisol and the mental static of your daily life.
Oh, I see.
By tiring out the muscular system and then instantly relaxing it in an onsen, you are literally softening the body's defenses. You are preparing the physiological soil so the seeds of a complex narrative can take root much deeper than if you were just reading on your couch.
So we have engineered silence in the city and engineered exhaustion in the country. But what if the environment actively forces your brain to confront the unknown?
Now we're talking about atmosphere.
Exactly. Let's look at Monteverde, Costa Rica. Hotel Belmar sits directly inside the misty cloud forest and runs an artist residency program. The surrounding area was the only known home to the golden toad, an incredibly striking species that was declared extinct over 2 decades ago. Writers still flock there, obsessed with the legacy of this vanished creature.
And the psychology behind why they flock there is fascinating. It's about the psychology of absence and visual limitation.
The visual limitation.
Yes. When you're sitting in a cloud forest, the mist physically obscures the horizon. Your eyes cannot focus on the distance, which forces the mind to turn inward. Couple that visual isolation with the omnipresent ghost of an extinct species like the golden toad, and you are forcing the brain to confront things that are no longer there.
Oh, wow.
The environment is literally demanding that you use your imagination to fill in the blanks. The mist and the biodiversity thin the veil between reality and the imaginary, making it the perfect incubator for creative thought.
I love that. The mist obscures the real world so you can see the fictional one more clearly.
Exactly.
But if Costa Rica thins the veil, our final destination drops a concrete wall over it. And I have to admit, I'm almost offended by this one.
Uh-oh. Lay it on me.
We have to talk about Palm Beach, Aruba. The Hyatt Regency Aruba Resort offers a beachside reading retreat package. You get the stunning Caribbean beach, you get the spa treatments, you get the culinary experiences. But the centerpiece of the package is a pair of noise-canceling stereo headphones preloaded with relaxation-inducing soundscapes so you can block out the entire island and just focus on your book.
Okay, I see why you're reacting that way.
I'm genuinely baffled by this. It sounds like a sensory deprivation tank for reading.
Well,
We fly thousands of miles to a gorgeous, vibrant Caribbean island just to slap on noise-canceling headphones and pretend we aren't there. Are our daily lives really so catastrophically overwhelming that we require international flights, spa treatments, and literal auditory isolation just to finish a paperback?
it sounds absurd on its face, but this raises an important question about the modern crisis of human attention. To answer your question, yes, our baseline reality has become that overwhelming.
Really? That bad?
The modern human is subjected to an unprecedented barrage of micro-stresses, push notifications, endless news cycles, the demand for constant digital availability. Our attention spans haven't just shortened, they have been actively shattered. What places like the Hyatt in Aruba are doing is engineering a brutal physical boundary.
A boundary against our own habits.
Exactly that. They recognize that the modern reader lacks the willpower to tune out distractions. By placing you on a warm beach, they are satisfying the body's need for tactile comfort, the sun, the sand, the breeze. But by applying the noise-canceling headphones, they are utilizing technology to execute an extreme form of sensory gating.
Sensory gating.
Right. They are systematically shutting down your auditory processing of the real world, leaving your brain with absolutely nowhere else to go but down into the text. It is an extreme, highly engineered solution to a distinctly modern neurological problem. We have lost the ability to focus naturally, so we are outsourcing the creation of focus to luxury resorts.
Wow. We have literally had to hack our own vacations, utilizing sensory deprivation on a sunny beach, just to reclaim the quiet necessary to read a single chapter. It is utterly fascinating, but I have to say it is also deeply sobering.
It reveals a vulnerability, certainly,
Yeah.
but flipped the perspective. It also demonstrates a profound, enduring reverence for the act of reading.
That's a good point.
People are willing to travel across the globe, spend significant amounts of money, and undergo extreme sensory curation, all to honor and protect the experience of consuming a good story.
Honoring the experience, that is a truly redeeming way to look at it. So for you listening, as you map out your PTO for the coming year, you kind of have to ask yourself, what kind of readable traveler are you?
That's a big question.
It is. Are you the historical pilgrim eager to stand on the freezing, punishing moors of West Yorkshire to let the biting wind help you biologically decode the Bronte sisters? Are you the modern fandom traveler seeking out the Swiss Alps to geographically manifest your fantasy community and roleplay in the shadow of the Matterhorn? Or are you the exhausted modern reader, desperately seeking the engineered, noise-canceled silence of an Aruban beach just to finally finish that thriller on your nightstand? The undeniable through line here is that literature is no longer confined to words on a page. It is a physical, three-dimensional space that you can actively step into. So what does this all mean?
I think it means we are on the precipice of fundamentally shifting the paradigm of how we conceptualize travel.
How so?
Traditionally, the process is incredibly linear and geography first. We pick a destination, we book the flights, and then purely as an afterthought, we grab whatever paperback is sitting around to pass the time on the airplane. But the read-away trend demands that we completely reverse that hierarchy. What if you let the narrative choose the coordinates?
Oh, I like where this is going.
Think about the mechanics of the experience. If you read a tense psychological thriller while sitting in a sunny, bustling, noise-canceled resort in Aruba, versus reading that exact same thriller deep in the misty, visually obscured cloud forests of Costa Rica, the story will literally synthesize differently in your brain.
Because of the atmosphere.
Right. The physical air pressure, the temperature on your skin, the presence or absence of sound. These elements fundamentally alter the emotional resonance of the text. The physical environment becomes an active co-author of your internal experience. So the next time you find a story that completely captures you, maybe the goal shouldn't just be to finish reading it. Maybe the goal should be to let it dictate your next great adventure.
The environment as an active co-author. I absolutely love that. So the next time you look up from an incredible book and you're hit with the disappointment of seeing your own living room, remember, the magic bubble doesn't actually have to pop. You just have to decide which flight is going to take you right back inside of it.